This is an interesting bill that is from Montana. Seven Democratic lawmakers in Montana just filed a bill that would require clergy members, like Catholic priests, to report abuse to law enforcement if they happen to learn about it through the act of confession. And actually, I have two stories about this. This is the first one. But if you don't know what I'm talking about here, this is really important to know. As it stands, let's say you're Catholic, you go to a Catholic church, you decide, I need to confess my sins. That is a sacrament. That is something very important in my religious faith. So I will go into the booth, confess to the priest whatever sinful things I have done, and the priest will hopefully forgive me and tell me how many Hail Marys to say to make things right again. And hopefully the thinking goes, I will stop doing those sinful things. And the thing is, when you tell a priest your sins, the priest is supposed to keep that information secret. That's kind of the point. You're confessing to somebody to absolve you of the guilt, but you can rest assured no one's going to tell anyone what your secret is. Now, compare that to doctors, social workers, or public school teachers who often get told secrets by the people they're in contact with. The difference is those professions are mandated reporters. They are required by law to file a report or tell an authority figure if they learn about or suspect that a child is being abused. So that's the difference. Some professions, the people are mandated reporters. Priests are not. So why won't religious leaders agree to report suspected abusers? Well, in the Catholic Church, Vatican officials have always said the seal of confession is sacrosanct. Anything said in the confessional booth has to be kept a secret no matter what. Otherwise, you're breaking the mirage, the illusion of religion. Like, if there's any potential that a priest might tell your secret or that certain confessions could be used as evidence against you, then maybe people won't want to confess their sins, and then maybe the church will go out of business. That's kind of the logic that they have. So in Montana, at least this week, 7 Democrats filed a bill, and they're led by someone named State Senator Mary Ann Dunwell. They filed a bill, it's Senate Bill 139, that would basically get rid of the exemption to priests. This is the whole bill. I know it's hard to read. There's a lot going on here, but look at what it says. Individuals who receive information shall maintain the confidentiality of the information. But then there is a section here about everyone is required to make a report. Here's what it says. You may not refuse to make a report. Right above my head. You may not refuse to make a report. And then look at letter B here. A member of the clergy or a priest is not required to make a report. That's the exemption. And what this bill would do is it just crosses all of that out. Basically saying everyone who learns about abuse would be required to report it. Priests are not special. You don't get an exemption. You have to play by the same rules that everyone else plays by. That's all this bill does, right? According to that bill, it says if any mandated reporters know or have reasonable cause to suspect that a child is abused or neglected by anyone, they shall report the matter. Totally smart thing to do. Now, here's one problem with this bill. It would be almost impossible to enforce because it's not like there are hidden microphones inside a confessional booth. How would you actually know that some abuser, some predator decided, oh my God, I'm feeling so guilty about what I did to that child. I'm going to go to church. I'm going to go to a confessional booth and just pretend like it's therapy. And I'm going to spill my guts to a priest, and the priest is going to help me atone for my sins. And then I'll get away with it and I can keep doing it. How are you going to prove that that's actually what's going on? It'd be really, really hard to do, right? But in theory, according to this bill, if there was proof that someone did that and a priest did not tell anyone about that information, they would be charged with the misdemeanor and that could result in a multi-year prison sentence in Montana. So, like, if you care about children, this is a straightforward common sense bill. There is no reason a priest should be allowed to keep his knowledge of child abuse secret because of his religious beliefs. Obviously, though, as I'm sure you all know by now, the Catholic Church doesn't actually give a damn about children. Or at least the sacrament of confession is more important to them than the safety of kids. And I know this because this has come up in discussion before. A couple years ago in Delaware, they tried passing a law just like this. And do you know what one Catholic priest said? Bishop William Koenig, who oversees the Catholic Diocese of Wilmington, told NBC 10 his diocese works hard in every way to protect children. But he also said the proposed bill was non-negotiable, however. For a priest to break the seal of confession, he would be excommunicated, Bishop Koenig said. That could only be lifted by the Pope. He says that like we're all supposed to think, oh, yeah, I mean, of course that would be horrible to get excommunicated. I guess we should let the child predators just roam free then. Like, what world do you live in where getting excommunicated is something worse than letting a child keep getting molested? I don't know. If you would rather protect priests than the victims, then maybe your organization is not, as that bishop said, working hard in every way to protect children. Here's another thing that happened this week. You know, the Catholic League, that right-wing Catholic group that just only puts out press releases when they want to whine about how Christians are being persecuted. This is what William Donahue wrote to Montana lawmakers. Look at the second paragraph here. It is unwarranted, this bill, because there's no breaking news on priests abusing this exemption. So what broke? There's not a scintilla of evidence that child abusers are confessing their sins to Catholic priests. Indeed, it strains credulity to argue that a person who is so depraved as to molest a child is likely to tell a priest about his behavior. If any lawmaker has evidence this is now a serious problem, we would like to see it. I ask this because the Catholic priest has dealt with this alleged problem before in several states, and not one lawmaker has ever been able to provide such evidence. This explains why all of these efforts ultimately fail. Show me some proof someone has confessed to child predation. Actually, this is the same group that when we started hearing stories about how priests were molesting kids and all those grand jury reports came out, the Catholic League put out statements saying the problem here is not the priesthood. It's not the rules of the Catholic Church. The problem is that some of these priests are gay. That's seriously what that group said. And now they're like, there's no evidence anyone's confessing these types of sins. Okay, here's a headline from 2020 in Australia. Catholic priest confessed 1,500 times to abusing children, and a victim says mandatory reporting could have saved him. There, I did it. I win. There's your headline that you think doesn't exist. So just Catholic League, not serious group of people. But here's the thing. Even there's a couple ways this could go. If we're talking about a very limited number of people, abusers, who admit their crimes, maybe out of guilt through confession, why should they be let off the hook? Why do we think they should just be allowed to keep doing whatever it is they're doing? What about children who tell a priest that their father is abusing them or their uncle is abusing them? If a kid says that because for whatever reason they think it's their fault and so they need to confess it, why would we want to keep that a secret? Why should priests be allowed to keep any of these admissions secret? And if it never happens, which is what Donahue is saying, then why would this bill even be a problem for you? This bill wouldn't not affect the church at all if it never happens. It doesn't single out Catholics. It just says all adults in like positions of authority who may learn about abuse should be mandated reporters. Like no one is forcing priests to reveal other types of confessions, just ones involving the abuse of children. It just seems like the Catholic Church and the Catholic League just have a secrecy fetish, and they don't want anyone to know if kids are getting abused. I will say, not all priests are like this. There was actually in Delaware when that bill was being considered a couple years ago, one priest actually said some really interesting things that I want to show you here. James Connell, who was a retired bishop, this is what he wrote in an essay for a local Delaware paper. Let me see if I can pull this up here. Unquestionably, secrets have a proper place in our lives. But if secrets contribute to the abuse or neglect of a minor, that form of secrecy is immoral and detrimental to the common good of the society. And then, look at this. And yet, where's that part that I want? Oh, here we go. As a result, governments should intervene such that, while perhaps frustrating the free exercise of religion for some people, the greater good of protecting children from abuse or neglect would be enhanced for the common good of all people. Our society should protect children, rather than protecting culprits. Like, that dude was great, and he's worked on this issue for a long time. You know what happened to him after he published that essay? The Archbishop of Milwaukee said that guy's no longer allowed to hear confessions. Like, he was punished for writing that essay. This is another one, another thing that's interesting. A Republican in Montana is already trying to whip votes against this bill. Lucas Schubert, Montana Republican, says anti-Catholic bill is going through the Montana State Senate that would force priests to break the confessional seal and dissuade people from seeking forgiveness from God. It's like, look at how he avoids telling anyone what that bill is about. The bill says, hey, we want to stop child abuse. And this guy is like, you guys, people won't confess or seek forgiveness from God. So just, don't read the bill. Just tell your representatives to vote against it. It's anti-Catholic. No, it's anti-abuse. And if you're the one equating abuse and Catholicism, that's on you. But this is how Republicans are lying to make sure this bill doesn't get passed. One more thing to show you here. The Associated Press put out this chart not that long ago, but they said that since 1987, more than 130 bills have been proposed at the state level to address sex abuse crisis. And not one of those 130 laws has been able to pass a bill that covers up that confession loophole. Anywhere they've said priests have to be mandated reporters, there's always an exception in the bill that says priests have to talk about it if they learn about abuse, unless you hear about it through confession, in which case you can keep the secret. So I don't know what's going to happen to this Montana bill. It is Montana. Democrats are vastly outnumbered, but it is the right thing to do. And kudos to those Democrats for proposing this bill and sponsoring this bill. And I hope they keep fighting for it. I'm going to stop there for a bit. What questions do we have? Can I have a link to this piece? Yes, I'm going to send it to Den. And when you are watching this on YouTube later, you can also see it in the show notes as well. There are 7 Democrats in Montana. Buddy, I didn't know there were 7 people in Montana, so I'm as surprised as you are. Unfortunately, those 7 Democrats are, again, very outnumbered in the legislature. So this is kind of performative, but there's a difference. Like when Republicans are being performative, it's always like racist or Nazi stuff. And when Democrats are being performative because they know they won't get a bill passed, it's this is how we would like to help people. And then Republicans are like, that's adorable. Go away. They work hard to protect children from everything except predators. Very true. Though, do they really work hard to protect children from anything? I am not sure about that. I feel like your kids are in more danger if they step inside a Catholic church. That's the way it should be. All crimes should be reported, right? It shouldn't be that complicated. If you're a teacher, like I'm a coach of stuff at a public school. If a kid tells me something is happening that is illegal because that kid trusts me, my job, legally speaking, is to break that trust and tell their counselor or tell someone in law enforcement because that's my duty to those kids. It's to make sure they're safe. Apparently, Catholic Church feels different. The Roman Catholic leadership has been unaccountable for far too long. How many crimes against humanity does it take to get the Vatican shut down? That is the weirdest how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Pop question I've ever heard, because the answer is all of them. We never know because no one can find out the answer. The answer is we're not there yet. They just are going to keep committing more crimes, and the Vatican's going to let them do it. God, I can already see Catholics treating a priest who chose prison over breaking a sacrament as a martyr. No kidding. Imagine if a priest said, I will not release what happened at confession. I'm going to prison. What that means is there's a child who's getting abused. That's all that means if this dude's going to jail, hypothetically. So, yeah, I don't know why they're trying to fight this particular battle. What if someone confesses to murder or several murders? This is an interesting point Carla brings up, because if someone confesses to murder, that's actually not part of the mandated reporting, because it's not about crime, it's about child abuse. So in theory, if someone confessed to murder, I don't think anyone's worried about that one. I don't think anyone's saying the priest has to report that. I would like to see a bigger law that says if you are aware of a crime taking place, you have to report that if it involves like the death of someone else or the abuse of someone else. But none of those bills, as far as I can tell, have been proposed. Off topic, but I just wanted to let Hemmett know that he chose the correct flavor of Gatorade. I don't know what flavor this is. I just know it's red. So that's what I go with. Red or light blue. Those are the only acceptable flavors. If it's clear, stay away. That's cherry. No one likes that.